Alright, hey there guys, today we're taking a look at something that is actually pretty interesting. Here we have the Atari VCS, a product that is the closest thing you can get to making a scam product without it actually being a scam. Now, if you're not terminally online and brain broken like me, you might not know the troubled development history of the Atari VCS, but it is legendary in terms of how troubled it was to just come to market. And this was a crowdfunded product back in the era where crowdfunding wasn't as much of a joke as it is now. But I was always interested in getting my hands on one of these just because of the history behind it. Less so because of what the device itself actually is. It's not exactly great in terms of specs, even from the moment that it was essentially finalized in terms of its spec, because this product was in development for so long that it actually went through different iterations in terms of the hardware that would actually end up being in there. But when the final design was announced, it wasn't exactly a performer then, and after all these years, I can't expect it's aged pretty well. I will admit I am kind of a sucker for the design of the box itself. It definitely has a very retro inspired design that I'm kind of a big fan of. Alright, so opening the box, it seems like there are multiple boxes within here. Okay, so that appears to be 3 boxes right there, and they have some cute design on all of this. They certainly did put in some effort for the presentation. In terms of what the device itself is claiming to do, here it says play new and retro games and apps including 100+ Atari classics. You could stream your favorite games and videos in 4K resolution. I'm definitely interested in testing that out. Discover Atari's classic joystick and modern controller featuring LED effects and rumble. Don't really know what that has to do with Discover at all. I guess, yeah, you're gonna discover using the controllers and customize as a unique PC mode and upgradable RAM and storage, which by the spec of this, you might actually really want to do. And of course, in the bottom text here, it says it includes a 30-day free trial subscription for Antstream Arcade. Now, I don't know about you guys, but for me, I have absolutely zero nostalgia for the Atari consoles. See, to me, the Atari devices are kind of like the silent film of the video game industry. They're interesting to look back at in a retrospective kind of way, and it's usually pretty fun and interesting when someone's talking about them, but to actually play these games, it's not exactly great. We're talking about very, very early days of video games, so the kind of games that you could play back then weren't exactly great. Now let's start off opening some of these boxes. But knowing all of that in terms of the fact that I just have no nostalgia to all of this, it does kind of take away a bit from the whole presentation here, because part of their whole angle here is completely banking on you being nostalgic for a lot of this. Okay, so here we have essentially the Pro controller, or the modern controller as they call it. Very, very standard Xbox style design. It doesn't exactly feel great. It definitely feels cheap. It definitely feels a bit cheap. It also feels very light. I'm guessing it's because it's hollow, since I'm pretty sure this doesn't run off of a battery. Unfortunately, it's a micro USB. So a rather old standard at this point, but I mean, if it works, it works. Certainly doesn't feel great, but we'll check it out. We'll check it out. All right, so with that one being this controller, I'm guessing this is going to be the joystick one. This is one of those things where I'm expecting to not like it just because I, again, have no nostalgia for any kind of game that needed this. And I expect it to feel like a kind of inferior controller. Alright, and same situation with the cable here. So definitely came out at a time when USB-C was a lot less standard. Okay, this definitely feels very cheap. Doesn't exactly feel high quality. It definitely feels cheaper than this thing does. Just surprising. I mean, we'll give it a go. You know, it's a very, very simple control scheme. A lot of these games are very basic. But let's actually dig into the main course here. Okay, there's the device. Okay, well, I don't know if you hear that, but there's something rattling around in there. Oh geez. Okay. So before I power this thing on, I'm probably gonna have to open it up and figure out what exactly is going on in there, because last thing I want to do is try to turn it on and something gets shorted and it just doesn't work anymore. The only reason I picked this up was because it was $80 at Walmart. Just randomly. They just had a bunch of them on sale online. I ended up buying it. I think $80 is still overpriced for this, but better than the retail $200. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like something metallic is rolling around in there, so I kind of have to open this up. Okay. Managed to pop this off. Actually, let's see if anything comes out. Okay. That might have been what was rattling around in there. I just popped off the faceplate of the back. That kind of just let this loose. I wonder what this is from. It's a torque screw and a washer. Wonder what they really went to. But I'm glad I did not turn on the system with this just floating around, because that could have caused a short. In fact, it definitely would have caused a short. That would have been disastrous. Well, we could continue on with the disassembly from here, but in all honesty, I want to try out the system as Atari intended you to. So I'm just going to put it all back together for now, and we're going to get this thing set up. Looking at the design of the actual device, though, I'm kind of a fan of the wood grain here. It definitely doesn't look high quality. It's just a strip that's put onto there to look like that. But I think that it aesthetically does look nice. Kind of a fan. One thing I'm not a fan of is the power button being in the back. Since technically this is what is facing forward. You don't know why there's no power button there, but okay. In terms of I/O, it's very limited. We have the two USB 3.0s in the front, we have two in the back, one HDMI, an Ethernet, and the AC power. So very limited selection, but of course this is meant to be kind of a console-like system, although of course it is a computer. Let's get this thing set up. And in terms of the power adapter, we are looking at a 65 watt power adapter. So a relatively chunky power adapter for a mini PC, especially one with the specs that this is rocking. Alright, so here I have it set up and it's booting up. You can see the logo is lit up there. Got something on the display there for a sec. Okay, yep, we got something happening there. All right, I am running through the setup here. It does want to connect to my Wi-Fi. All right, Ethernet is plugged in. There we go. Got an Ethernet connection. All right, it's gonna run through the checking of all the updates and all that. Counter. Guess we'll create a new account. I really don't want to have to give them much of any information though. Okay, it seems I can't even make a new account. Excellent, great. Love to see that. Okay. I don't know what I'm supposed to do there. Then I'll go in as a guest. All right. So Atari has put in their own user interface in here that you're meant to essentially install all your games. And they even have like an app store here. It isn't just something that is only meant to be for gaming. It's meant to have other things. But this is a very, very half-baked implementation. And half-baked is being generous. This is really just some very low effort stuff being put in here. And if I really had to guess, I would imagine this is one of those products that really only came into existence because they wanted investor money. Not necessarily to release a product and sell it to people and make money off of it, but the real idea is to get investors to put in their money and kind of string them along, kind of have them pump in more money as the project goes along. And once it actually releases, even if the product wasn't great, you kind of just got about 4 to 5 years of investor money just thrown at you. And as you can see by the fact that the store is not loading, I might have some merit towards what I'm actually talking about here. I guess this is as good a time as any to start talking about the specs of the system and as to why it's kind of just dying in the store. The Atari VCS released all the way back in 2021. It started shipping to backers all the way back in December of 2020. So the hardware that's in here is the AMD embedded R1606G Zen processor. So that's a 14 nanometer original Zen dual core processor with 4 threads, effectively an Athlon 240G. a very, very low-end part. Even when it released, it was one of the lowest end parts that you could pretty much get from AMD. Now, they tout the fact that it is upgradable, and that is true. It is a socketed RAM configuration, but as you might have seen a little bit there, it's not exactly the easiest device to get into. Really, the idea behind this device was essentially for Atari to do what Atari does now, because Atari is a shell corporation. It is essentially a bunch of businessmen wearing the corpse of a former company. Atari as it exists now isn't in the business of making video games. They are in the business of trying to monetize nostalgia. That's why this device even exists. It exists to try to invoke nostalgia in someone. Someone that they hoped was willing to drop $200, which is the original asking price of this. And that just seems kind of ridiculous for what you're getting here. The hardware is not great. And as you can see, the software that goes along with that hardware also is not great. As you can see, nothing is working right now. I can't even launch the game. It's just telling me that something went wrong. Yeah, I literally just can't do anything here. Kind of just cooked. I'm gonna try restarting it, and we'll see if that gets it to work. If not, I'm going to probably just install another operating system on here so that we could have anything to do, because this is really just not working at all. I'm actually baffled by how little this is working. I'm a little disappointed, not too much. I wasn't exactly excited to play any Atari games. The fact that nothing is working right now is kind of crazy to me. Let's hope a reboot fixes this. Okay, already while it's restarting, that got really loud. That was really, really loud. Not deafeningly loud, but definitely noticeably loud. Nope, it just endlessly keeps telling me that something is wrong. So yeah, I'm just gonna install another OS on here. Might as well. I guess I'll start all that. Alright, it has been a very long time coming getting here, but I am now finally on the Atari VCS. I am booted into Bazite, but it's almost 2 in the morning at this point. I don't want to go through the effort of downloading any games. So instead, what I'm going to do is what I really wanted to test out on here and see how well Moonlight runs. Now I'm going to have this stream at 1080p at 60 Hz, so we are going to bump the bitrate up to about 75, but let's get this thing started. Actually, wait, let me turn on the performance meter. Alright, and there we have it. You can see in the corner there that we are running at 1080p, though it isn't at the full FPS. That makes sense, but luckily we are able to remote control my desktop computer. Now, the display there is set to 1440p. We are streaming this at 1080p. That's just what the resolution of this display is. But when I get this thing set up in my bedroom, because I'm thinking about using this thing as essentially the client that will run Plex, run Twitch, and run Moonlight. If this can handle Moonlight, then I'm going to be pretty happy. In terms of the games that I have installed on my main PC right now, I'm going to launch Killing Floor 2 just because it's a game that gets a high refresh rate all the time. So we're going to be able to guarantee to get 60 on here all the time. I was thinking of using Stalker 2, but Stalker 2, it might be a little iffy on whether or not we get a consistent 60. Of course, this isn't the full test of this system, because to do that, we would have to try it on a display that goes all the way up to at least 120 Hertz, which is the target range that I'm going for being able to stream it on my bedroom TV. I got that Philips 144 Hertz TV for a reason, and that's pretty much it. All right, now let's make sure that the game is running at the right settings here. Yep, everything is at ultra variable FPS. Oh yeah, I can see on the Steam corner there that it is getting an above 100 FPS. That's perfect, exactly what I want. I am actually right now using the controller that came with the console just to see how good it is. So far, it seems to be all right. It feels like a third-party Xbox controller, that's for sure, but it certainly isn't terrible, and that's actually already more surprising to me considering I paid $80 for the system. If the controller functions, and it actually is a wireless controller, though I haven't tried it out on anything else. Okay, well, this isn't looking great right now. Yeah, okay, this thing is already struggling. That's unfortunate to see. We aren't getting a consistent 60 FPS, and I can definitely feel that here. There's some noticeable latency in terms of rendering the frames. I'm curious if Bazite is even the best operating system to use here, since I can't get the full Steam Deck experience because of the fact that this is a pretty old chip. It doesn't really function well. I'm definitely going to mess around with the system a bit more just to figure out what is the most performance I can get out of this thing, but it really does seem to be struggling with Moonlight here. I'm going to see if there's any configurations that I could do, if there's any Linux distros that might make better. For right now, as the first impressions, this is definitely interesting. The best part so far is literally just that this controller functions pretty well, but I mean the hardware that we have in here is just not really capable of doing a lot. But Bazite isn't exactly optimized for hardware like this, so I'm going to try to see if there's any other Linux distros that might make the experience here any better. So I'll catch you guys in the next one.